So I will be responding to Rachel's topic of the ketogenic diet, and her proposition was that the ketogenic diet is an unsafe method of weight loss. And the points that she used to prove it was ketogenic diet can lead to nutrient deficiencies. Ketogenic diet may have other adverse effects on health, and it is unsafe when done without supervision. And my response claim is that the ketogenic diet is a safe method of weight loss under the right provisions. So just to remind you guys what the ketogenic diet is, it's a high-fat, low-carb diet, and it forces the body to burn fats rather than carbs. And the intake of it, 75 to 80% is fat, 5% is carbs, and 15 to 20% is protein. So to the first point that it has nutrient deficiencies, she mentioned that it can lower the level of electrolytes such as potassium, sodium, and magnesium. And just like when you're sick, you do lose electrolytes. So when you're sick, you drink a lot of water and drinks such as Powerade and Gatorade, so that can help replenish it. So dietitians recommend to do that as well. But there are also food that provide nutrients. My opponent failed to mention the fruits and vegetables that are included in the diet that are acceptable. So some low-carb fruits are berries, avocado, and tomato. So for the berries, you have like raspberries, which is about 7 grams of net carb, and they contain antioxidants. And there's also blackberries, which have 4.3 net carb, and they contain vitamin C and vitamin K. And also avocados. Avocados have 4 grams net carb, and they actually have more potassium than bananas. For about 1 cup of a sliced avocado, it has 690 milligrams of potassium, while one banana only has 422. Some vegetables included are leafy greens, broccoli, cauliflower, herbs, and cucumbers. And those are mostly non-starchy vegetables. For the second, that it has adverse effects on health, there are also some positive effects on health. So she mentioned that there's a risk of cholesterol levels rising, and in the ketogenic diet increases HDL levels. HDL cholesterol is considered the good cholesterol, which helps prevent cholesterol from accumulating and clogging the arteries, so that is a positive effect. She also mentioned that there are heart risks. So I found from a medical article that the majority of studies and systematic reviews of the ketogenic diet, I found that following it from anywhere from 3 months to 3 years significantly improves levels of triglycerides and HDL cholesterol, and increase the size of low-density lipoprotein cholesterol particles, which lowers the risk of heart disease. For her third point, she said it's unsafe without supervision. And this is true because there are things that can go wrong depending on your body type. And so it should be monitored by a medical professional. She also failed to mention if there was any long-term studies. She said that there wasn't any long-term studies, but when I looked it up, I found one from a German study that concluded, in contrast to the previous short-term reports on adverse effects of the ketogenic, a 10-year follow-up did not identify any cardiovascular risk of dietary treatment. And plus the one I had mentioned earlier for the second point was also long-term. So there are effects, there are benefits of it. So like lowering, it does help prevent lowering the bad cholesterol. It does also helps prevent with the heart risk. And there are key nutrients in it that will help your body. And that concludes.
Right, the structural stuff is all fine. You give us a good background and remind us about what the argument is. On the first point, your counterclaim basically is that the problem here is that they lose the electrolytes, that kind of thing, and you make an analogy there. I was a little concerned about the examples that you use, Gatorade, Powerade. That sounds like it would be full of carbs, which is the stuff that they're trying to get rid of. But you kind of followed up with a different variation on that when you mentioned all the various fruits and vegetables that are lower in carbs but have higher amounts of the nutrients that you're going to need in that situation. I think that's a good counterclaim. One of the things that's missing is a little bit of contrast to the advocate's argument. Is there any demonstration of how much risk there is? What's the likelihood that people are going to suffer from these kinds of nutritional deficiencies? How typical is it? We don't have any of that kind of information. At least I don't remember any of it. You should be doing a little bit more contrasting on that point. So I like the evidence that you come up with and the argument that you're making, but you don't want to forget to kind of address it in the context of what the advocate's argument is. And I think there needs to be a little bit more comparison. The same issue comes up in a couple of other places. The clearest argument that you have that does do that kind of thing is on the second point on the heart health issue. When you talk about cholesterol, you directly say that HDL is, the good cholesterol, and it's going to have a long-term benefit to people. If the advocate's argument was about the effect and it was measuring HDL, that would be a very good response. You want to cite that. The general information about the benefits long-term, your information 3 months to 3 years, it results in changes of triglycerides, all that sort of thing. That's a good piece of information. Your source citation is a medical article, however. I think that's a little vague, so you want to be more specific on that. And I like the fact that you pointed out in your last point that there was evidence relevant from the second point that is applicable to this issue. The idea that it's unsafe without some kind of supervision. You basically concede that, and I'm not sure that that undermines any part of your response, because I think everybody understands that undertaking a diet should require some kind of supervision. So that's not really the controversial part of the argument. The controversial part is the stuff that you responded to. All right, thank you.